The next panel, it's called Building Global Companies from Barcelona. And we're going to talk about some examples of local companies that have gotten international funding. The moderator of this panel is Carlos Trencs from Aldea Ventures, and he's going to be with Mick Halsband, Sarah Drinkwater, and Pol Baladas. So whenever you're ready.
I sit here.
Marvna?
So, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming, and we will run this session, this next 30 minutes, trying to give you new flavor about what's happening here in Barcelona and why the tech ecosystem is growing. No? And one of the potential results that this maturing ecosystem that Barcelona have is the fact that 40% of all the seed capital money is invested directly by international funds in startups from the city. No? So why these international funds are investing in the city? Why local founders are looking at international investors to provide financing from the very, very early stage. So this is the main area of these 30 minutes. And I want to say welcome to Sarah, to Paul, and to Mick to come here today to share their vision. So first of all, I want just to introduce yourself, 2-3 minutes about your background and in the case of the fund or the company that you represent.
Thank you. So I'm Sarah. I'm British English, and I'm currently based in London. I've lived and worked in Silicon Valley, Tel Aviv, and South India, and I've worked in early stage tech for the last 15 years as a community builder. I now have a fund, Common Magic, where I invest in products with community at their core, such as Fermat. What does that mean? That means companies that leverage bottom-up go-to-market to build trust around products. Think Figma, GitHub, Hugging Face. And in a last life, I was at Google for a long time, building physical spaces and communities for them. And actually, 10 years ago, I came to Barcelona. We were trying to start a space for entrepreneurs in Spain, and we had the choice of Madrid and Barcelona. We picked Madrid based on what we saw at the time, but I look at the markets now and where I prefer, and I think Barcelona wins on kind of cultural capital every time. So look forward to chatting about that more.
Okay.
Thanks.
Paul. I would agree with you, Sarah. Well, sorry, Carlos, for arriving so quickly. Thank you for hosting this. I think it's a great opportunity to talk about, the European kind of ecosystem. And well, I'm Paul, CEO and founder at Fermat. What Fermat does is basically a collaborative space for creative teams. So think fashion, furniture design, physical product design, but also strategic innovation. All kinds of work with ideas and new concepts. And what we allow is for them to combine these all very, very new and very, very powerful AI models into even more powerful workflows that fit their processes. I'm born and raised in Barcelona. Previously started a few edtech companies, as one does when, starting out and, it's kind of young and all the problems that you find around are edtech problems because that's education is your life. And so that was a great experience for me to then start Fermat. Thanks to Mick, actually.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure being here in this beautiful city. My name is Mick. I'm one of the founders at Lunar Ventures. Lunar is a pre-seed fund. We're based in Europe, headquartered in Berlin, investing in Europe and globally. We launched our first fund in 2019. It's a 40 million fund, made 25 investments out of that fund, and recently launched Lunar 2, where the mission is really backing deep tech founders as early as first money in and being the most technical backer, most technical partner to those founders. As a personal background, I'm a software engineer originally, so I started my career in Tel Aviv many years ago, in the late 90s. I've worked for about 20 years building software, part of which on embedded systems, so shipping mobile devices, shipping phones with LG, working with Sun Microsystems and Oracle. Gradually drifted more to the machine learning space, working on problems from computer vision, computer graphics, all the way to big data for medical devices and finance. Maybe I break here.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So brief introduction about myself. I'm Carlos. I'm the co-founder of Aldea Ventures. Aldea is a fund of funds that invest in seed capital funds all around Europe. No, our vision is that technology is not a local business anymore. You need to find the right specialized investor, no, to go with you at the different stages. No? So our idea is to identify the new managers that are raising small but specialized funds and try to back them. No? And the other thing is these funds can be everywhere, but we would like to connect them with the local ecosystem. No? And this is one of the cases, no? That in this case, two specialized funds decide to back one local company here in Barcelona. No? So very glad that this happens. No? So my first question to you, to your audience, no? Do you agree that technology is global, that when you plan to create a technology company, your market is the world, and you need to have global talents, global sales, global investors, no? And it's possible to do this from the beginning, since the beginning, or it's better to start local, and once the company is created, it's better to go outside, no? And at that moment goes. So what is the best way to build this kind of companies, Sarah?
I mean, I don't think there's one size fits all. I think there's two pieces there. The first is that great companies come from everywhere, right? And I think when companies are very small, there's a lot to be said for physically working in the same room. Like, I've run large remote teams before, but I do think that, you know, if you look at Europe now, I'm seeing great companies come from atypical tech hubs, places that might not 5 years ago have been seen as like the top tech hubs. I think the second thing you're pointing to is how much should an early stage company focus on the domestic market, focus on domestic investors? And I feel like, you know, in Europe, you've got a couple of fairly large domestic markets, whether it's Spain, France, Germany, the UK. And I think you're seeing that, you know, with a French company, for example, there's that temptation to kind of stay local, have a local investor. But I think particularly with a city like Barcelona, where there's an awful lot of international talent, you know, there's a huge Spanish-speaking market in the rest of the world outside of Spain as well. I think there's lots of opportunities there to kind of start with a bigger mindset. I mean, I'm very much like a start small and scale from there kind of person, but I don't think that has to mean local versus global. I think it's far more about how do you build something that works for like a very particular group first. That's just my kind of company, I guess.
I wanted to ask to Mick, no? You, Mick, invest mostly in deep tech, no? So really, really, I would say, deep technologies, no? You invest before even product is done. So is any particular place where these companies are created, or as well, no? As Sarah was mentioning, no? This is something that can happen in different parts of Europe, no? And you need to identify in this.
Yeah, absolutely, Carlos. I think I completely agree with Sarah. You know, great founders come from everywhere, great companies can come from everywhere, and definitely great deep tech companies can come from everywhere. We see in our portfolio a mix of maybe, let's call it more digital businesses, where the ability to build really something global, something very large, is only dependent on your innovation and a laptop. But we're also seeing companies innovating in semiconductors and quantum computing and tech bio themes and drug discovery, and those require sometimes wet labs and sometimes require more resources. Fortunately, those are very common across Europe. And so we see that those opportunities are really strongly incentivized by local ecosystem, where universities, research department, and research facilities are more common. I think that's a unique European advantage. But beyond that, it's truly a question of innovation and of ambition.
And one question for you, Paul. No, you decided to start Fermat, no? And why you finally went with to international VCs and other accelerators, no? Why? What is the story, no? Of this, your financing in this space?
Absolutely. I mean, did everyone see the launch of Gemini here, of Google last week? Well, the co-lead in that project in Google DeepMind studied in UPC, right? Is Catalan, studied here, and I don't think that's getting enough traction. I think it's a very important matter. But he had to leave, right? Also to get that pool of talent, that pool of attention. But the fact is that he studied here, so that kind of proves the point that great deep tech can be, appear out of almost anywhere. And it is true that a very idea-based or vision-based founder, very early stage, with a lot of world building, like what Sarah likes to invest in, is kind of difficult to find seed stage funding in Spain. But that's also on our side. Like maybe it's also hard to properly describe the problem, properly describe what you're trying to achieve, and then that's where kind of more international investors are more used to hearing different types of pitches, are more kind of welcoming of that type of pitch. That was the case for Mick here. But then when you start having more concrete answers to your, what's the problem that you're solving, who is your customer, then there's more than enough money in Spain as well to get funded. But yeah, I think that's my answer.
That's perfect. Here we see one founder that have two different VCs, no? And they are really different. No? So one is, I would say, a deep tech geek. No? So somebody that is able to understand, not you,
I think
Sarah,
Carlos
not
is calling me a dumb.
So it's about Mick. No? So it's
True.
the guy that is looking at technology, no? and imagine what you can do with this technology. No? And we have Sarah. That Sarah, I would say, that is one of the specialists to go to market, no? Through communities. No? So this is a question for you also, Paul, and we will come back to the others. So how important is have specialized and complementary investors, or is better to have a generalist one, no, with a platform behind him, no? So this is the two different kinds of investors that can support you.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I will speak from my, limited experience, of course, but we think of building a team of VCs in the same way that we think of building a team of, our team or our people inside of the company. And the same way you hire because, people are the same, but also hire because people are different and they complement each other, you can do the same with VCs. We see it very, very clearly. We also have another investor in Betterworks in New York City, which, very clearly complements, this guy is a genius at engineering, she's a genius in community building and go-to-market, and they're great at just product. So we thought kind of hard around how to build that ecosystem, but also, just kind of have your ears open and see what happens along the way is a good advice. Not get too kind of stuck with one particular idea.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the last time that I raised money as a team from VC was a long time ago. It was about 2009. And at the time in Europe, there were so few people that were investing in early stage companies that we didn't have a lot of choice. And we picked a team where they really only offered capital. And I think founders now have such an incredible smorgasbord of options in terms of the kind of fund. And so many founders that I see that are great quality, like Pol, have the ability to kind of pick and choose. And so therefore they're thinking about, okay, I love this particular person at this name brand fund, but will that person stay? Whereas I think with a smaller fund, when you have a tiny fund like ours, there is no danger of that person leaving because it's very much, it's their life's mission to kind of build this fund and build this firm. And I think the best founders tend to always think in this way of building their own cap table. It's not necessarily the founders choosing them. It really is of the investors choosing them. It really is the founders building who they want, and having the ability to kind of pick and choose in that way.
You, Mick, Lunar is traditionally the first institutional ticket in some deep tech companies, no? How important is for you to complement the cap table with other kind of investors?
Yeah. A great question. I think also to the previous point, the alternate path of, let's call it a platform generalist or a team of specialists is really a question of what are you building and what do you need. I think both for deep tech, but also other specialized fintech, edutech, other specialized targets, it's really important to have specialists that understand the various pillars of the business. I think generalists become much more valuable at a later stage, the Series C, the Series A, when capital becomes a commodity. For us, what we see as, let's say, the golden standard of a round where Lunar is leading is a combination of micro funds like Sarah's, operators, super angels, technology investors, and other value-add investors that can really complement all of the various challenges. Sometimes you pick a founder that built and sold a large open source business, and that's kind of meaningful contribution to the round, and sometimes you pick people that scaled and built large sales organizations. And it's really a question of also what the team internally is missing. For most of our teams, we invest in very heavily technical teams, and getting more technology smarts into the cap table is not necessarily, so it's marginal improvements, right? So really complementing the team where they lack expertise, where they lack backgrounds is important.
The market in Europe is evolving, so you clearly can see that the funding was different 2 years ago, last year, this year. So my question is for all of you, who has the power today? So who is choosing who? So is the founder choosing the investors, or are the investors that choose the founders? What is the situation today?
I think it's so... I think we're still seeing a very binary market where for the majority of founders, fundraising is kind of hard. And then for a teeny tiny group of founders that are repeat founders or building in a particularly hot space, like I've just invested in an AI infra company, and that was a wildly contested kind of opportunity in many ways. And I think the challenge of this moment in time is that a lot of the American multi-stage funds are still pretty active. At the same time as a lot of the European generalists are being a lot more cautious. I'm definitely seeing a bit more of that. I don't know about you, Mick. But what that means is when a good opportunity, in inverted commas, I'm not saying it's my good opportunity, but I'm saying it could look like a good opportunity. When that comes along, the price might get inflated. The founder has a lot of ability to choose. And I think the difficult thing for the founder is, I would always advise a founder to raise a small amount of money and test assumptions first, rather than raise all of my unhappiest founders did very large first rounds, 3 million plus. I think obviously that depends on what you're building, but I think for many products, that scale of first round creates very high expectations in a way that can cause unhappiness in 18 months' time. But I'd be curious about what Luna is saying as well.
Yeah, I think completely agree. The market is very bifurcated. I think that the very best founders can choose, and I think the very best founders should choose. I think that beyond that, it's really a question of your positioning. So few funds are a Sequoia, few funds are a Andreessen, Lux, where you can really see all of the market comes to you. Whether they choose you or not, they come to you to say, Andreessen gave me a term sheet and I didn't take it. So I think that's also a position to be in. Maybe to the founders in the audience, my advice would be think about a VC, also to Pol's point, as someone you're hiring, right? Interview as many VCs as you can, talk to as many investors as you can, really pick the ones not only where you see that the conversation clicks, the chemistry clicks, but where you see where the value comes from. And I think that's not so much of a question of power dynamics, but really understanding your position in the fundraising process as someone who's making a choice, rather than I'll take whatever check is being thrown at me, I'll make a very informed choice. Sometimes the informed choice is perfect, sometimes it's not.
Pol, I remember that you went to an international accelerator. Mm-hmm. How important it was this for global perspective of Fermat? No? Is this something that you recommend a local entrepreneur to go outside and to be in a global accelerator in order to start interactions with international funds, or is not something that you can change?
No, absolutely. It's I mean the short answer is I recommend it very very eagerly. It's a question also of what kind of company you are. For us, New York was a very clearly important place. A lot of creative people there, a lot of future of computing people there, which is kind of the deep tech area of what we're doing. And for example, the person who leads AI at Notion lives there and is now also an angel investor. And we met him through that journey, and as well, just many great product entrepreneurs that we liked. Went through that program or were around. So I would definitely also recommend to see if you vibe with the people you're going to spend time with. And if not, then that should be kind of the major problem, more than money or conditions. You can negotiate those, but if you like the people, that's very important. And I would definitely recommend it to get a more global perspective. Although we, from here, from the very first moment we started the company, already started thinking about a narrative that was very, very global. Our motto is humans are tool makers. We allow people to build their own workflows and so. And tool makers, artisans, are actually something that is a very global feeling. It's not just here in Europe, but the artisans is something that you can find in every place on earth. In every little town from any country, there's an artisan, is a person who is very well respected. So we chose that figure as a global marketing or narrative, basically.
Maybe I just add one sentence to Pol's point. I think our recommendation would also be immediately go outside, immediately expand your network. And it's not so much about whether it's an accelerator program or some other, let's call it, time-limited opportunity. It's really, as a local founder, and typically most of us are local in the sense that we all have a background, we all come from a specific network. Nobody grows up necessarily in a very global ecosystem. The most important thing is to create as large of an opportunity space for you, for your business, for your hiring, for your fundraising, for your sales. And the only way to do that is really open up a very large global network from day one, if possible.
But I think this is the benefit of Europe. When I lived in San Francisco, I had to drive to the office. It was a 3-hour round trip. It was an 8-hour flight to get to New York. If you look at Europe, you have these incredible, massive melting pot cities. You have these massive domestic markets, and you can get a train. And so I think, to your point, there really is something about scale of vision and building network outside of your home base. And I think the benefit of Barcelona is this is a very attractive city in terms of cultural capital. There's a huge density of interesting talent here that is flocking from over the rest of the world, which should help with that network building. I mean, this is the best thing about San Francisco and London is people come and they leave. And then you have friends in other places. And this is just very good for your mindset. If you're thinking about hiring, if you're thinking about selling, if you're thinking about how big can my ambition be, and I think that's the really important point. It's your point around humans are tool makers. That's the scale of vision that a great investor is looking for, is not, I met a company recently that are great, but they are basically an operating system for therapists in Sweden. And that's lovely, but it's really hard for me to understand how that gets big enough to benefit my fund and my LPs. And so I think that vision, that universality of vision is really important.
So we have an audience that is pretty crowd of entrepreneurs. So what are you looking for? So what they can identify what you are looking for, and at the same time,
Yes.
investing all around Europe, looking at what's happening in different hubs around Europe, What are you looking for in a specific company, in a specific founder?
Yeah, I mean, I invest at the same stage as Mick. I particularly like pre-seed opportunities. I particularly like founders solving their own problems. I love companies that have an incredible ability to build a moat around their product in the form of a community. So this could be crypto, it could be open source. I like meeting folks when they haven't entirely taken the leap yet. So I'm quite comfortable with kind of idea stage companies. And I guess what I'm looking for is intensity, obsession, all of these good things, a unique behavioral insight that kind of really puts my brain on fire. And that scale of vision. I think ultimately, I have worked a lot in the last couple of years with technical founders because I think I have a lot of skills that some technical founders don't have. And so that tends to be quite a good pairing. But, I've invested in everything from bio to developer tools to fintech to health. I don't have a particular specialism. I have certain areas I love more than others. But I would encourage you folks to come and say hi to me afterwards. My email is really simple. It's sarah@commonmagic.xyz, or just DM me on Twitter. I'm very easy to get hold of, as Pol knows.
Mick?
So Lunar perceives itself as a deep tech fund, but for the technical folks in the crowd, you will recognize that this is a bit meaningless. What do we actually look for? We look for very technical people. Carlos made the joke, and I think it's true. We're nerds looking for geeks. We like people that geek around and that really have an obsession, a technical obsession, that we can get behind. Sometimes it's in AI, sometimes it's an open source project, sometimes it's infra tooling, sometimes it's quantum. Sometimes it's a technology that we don't know about yet. And we encourage, really technical, passionate technical people to come speak to us and pitch us their ideas, and we can see, similar to Sarah, we can take the leap just on a sheet of paper or on a product. We typically like supporting founders really from the point of very early proof of concept, technical proof of concept, into really a working product that drives value to people out there.
Pol, you are 3 local founders, I'm correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That you met in the university?
Yes.
And you are building
first day, yes.
Exactly. And you are building a global company, with customers that are worldwide, where you have investors that are coming from different,
We're very early though. But yes.
You are trying to do it.
Yes.
So what is the recommendation that you give to all the founders that are starting the company? Because you are created from the university, no?
Well, advice can come from anywhere. So, I mean, that's a good question. Go out. I would say for us, London was also very, very special. We hired some people in London as well because of literally a meeting in a pub. Like we were having some beers with some nerds, which you would invest in. And that was the start of something very big for us. What this felt? So that was the start of something very big for us. Our small community in London, hiring someone there, and then doing the leap to US. Again, New York or San Francisco or LA or Seattle, whatever. You are working on find where your communities live and are, and go there. But the most important thing is keep your founding team very, very strong.
But I think something else Fermat is really good at is you build in public a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You use Twitter a lot, and so I actually met Fermat twice, and not in Barcelona. I heard about them through a friend was on the same program in New York as them, and she was like, "You would love this team." And then I met Max at the hackathon in London that I ran, and so I met Fermat twice through non-Spanish means. And I think part of that is because you are so good at finding your people and relentlessly selling what you're doing in a way that doesn't feel salesy.
Pushy, yeah. I mean, just like the vibes. Again, it's stupid, but if you kind of communicate what you care about the most, the other people that also cares about that will kind of find you. I would not say we're great at marketing. We're just constantly talking about what we do, and that has worked for us.
So we are running out of time. We have only two minutes. So if you need to, and this is very, very short, if you give an advice to Barcelona, no? to the city, no? to become more important, no? as an emerging city?
Well, to believe in itself again would be a great start.
Okay, and for the other people, because you, Mick, and Sarah has been here. So what do you see in Barcelona, or what you are not seeing in Barcelona that you are seeing in other places?
But I think lean into who you are. Like Barcelona has everything, right? And I think to Pol's point, I think cities get stuck in who they think they were 5 years ago. London has this problem a lot right now with Brexit. But ultimately, lean into who you are. People really want to live here. There's a great life here. There's a lot of really incredibly talented people that have chosen to build their companies here. You should be shouting about the success stories, I think.
Yeah, I would say this is also the main reason that we chose and are so fortunate to partner with Pol. We were just completely enamored immediately by how big of a vision Pol had. And I think that the advice here would be to dream very, very big, to dream incredibly big, and as big as you're dreaming, dream bigger. And that's when I think magic starts happening. I think that's really the opportunity for Europe also to dream itself as a global winner.
I think that probably this panel couldn't be possible 10 years ago. I think that this is a clear sense that the maturing of the local ecosystem. So if one thing I can encourage is that Barcelona is an attraction magnet for international talent. So one of the things that we should do is try to mix international talent with local talent. I think if we are able to do this, I think that with the level of ambition and the quality that we have here, the world is us. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this panel.